Hello everyone, my name is Kunal Shahabra. I lead BLOX Technology, which is an Australia-based blockchain technology startup, and we're working on enabling the adoption of blockchain among organizations and government. In this demonstration, we'll discuss the paradigm shift happening in property lending industry and how blockchain can add value in this commercial ecosystem. Additionally, I will do a quick demonstration in the end on a property lending application which is live and working, and we created this using our code-free blockchain application development platform known as BLOX in a matter of 6 days. If you see the current slide, we see a new era coming up where the function of banks, the real estate companies, the fintech companies, etc., will drastically change. We foresee a property lending being driven by a consortium of entities who are not related to each other but offering services in tandem in a trusted network. And the reason why we think so is we understand the way we have progressed from 1990s property market till now. The players in the market have become niche but can't thrive in the market now because they have dependencies, let's say on third-party companies or agencies. For instance, credit for credit history checks or property valuation or documentation services and so on. The current stance is very structured but complex that creates a confinement and in the end delays for customers. Now our idea is to bring these service providers in a consortium format, bringing services and competencies in a blockchain network, which then can take away the pain of signing legal terms, for instance, or exchanging of documents, transactions, and values without the headache of transaction resolution, or any differences among parties, or any reconciliation problems, or regulatory problems in the most efficient way. In short, what we have done is a simple example or an experiment of how a lender bank, the seller and the buyer, being part of the three-trade deal, can use their own distributed application in the blockchain to talk to each other and perform the property purchase process in the most efficient way. Now, let's go to the user story here before we jump into the demonstration. So our key focus is to have delivery of the property, which is an asset, versus the payment in an atomic fashion. And we did this using R3 Corda platform, on the R3 Corda platform. So here you would see the deviation from the real life process in general, which can easily be changed given more time. We're not property lending experts, so we just did our best. So, and this is also just an experiment to prove it can really work. Okay, so now moving on. In the step 1, if you see in this current slide, is the property owner on the left hand side or the seller representing the node 1 or the party 1 in a blockchain network. This would need to register for property at the local government or online portal anyway. So we have created a distributed application on the blocks with the name of property registration for this matter. And the government agencies will verify the data and documents uploaded, perform checks and issue a property token as a result of the documents loaded by property owner or the seller. In the step 2, the property buyer, which is on another node party 2 on the blockchain network, will ask for financing this property token. Now, buyer will input the information such as the financial information or the personal information. Some of the information can be pre-filled as well from third-party services. And finally, upload some kind of documentation which is required as a part of the process. Now, and all this has been done on another distributed app that is called as loan application, which is also created on the blocks. Finally, the third point is about the outcome of this lender bank. So this lender bank is represented as a bank 1 node in our blockchain network, who will review the application at the moment it's offline and issue bank tokens for this property purchase. Now, the bank tokens issued will be only for this property token that is having 1-to-1 ratio. What this implies is the bank tokens issued by the lender bank, it can't be used anywhere else or buying any other asset, or in simple words, it can't be misused. And coming to the last step, which is step number 3, is the property buyer will initiate the transaction to buy the property on the network by using another distributed app called as Asset Exchange on the blocks. This will be initiated from party 2 node, which is representing the buyer. He will choose or she will choose the right property from the list of properties, which will appear automatically through a data source. Select and choose a lender bank of choice, which is also coming from the data source, and see the list of pre-approved bank tokens coming. That is also reflected automatically through a data source. So all of the information we are fetching by using BLOX connectors, we're sourcing information from the blockchain network itself in this case, and which will be useful in showing the information pre-filled or maybe selectable for the user, and it's quite helpful. So what buyer would do is he would use and select all his options using bank tokens plus his own personal cash to purchase a property in atomic fashion. The smart contracts configured in the background ensure the amount, the total amount, is enough to support the transaction successfully. Now, for the technical guys who want to know like how this magic really happens in the background, there's a bit of technical detail we have added, and we know like this is very important how we approach the settlement process. We did this on R3 Corda platform, as I mentioned before. So, firstly, asset in this case, which is property, is sending as a transaction to the buyer, who then verifies the transaction. Secondly, he then prepare another transaction by binding the property itself with cash and bank tokens in his wallet. Then he signs the transaction through the node's key and send this back to the seller for his verification and signing. Once the signing from the seller has been finished, then we initiate the flow to have finality of this transaction and get the assets exchange. So this is holistically how we have achieved the atomic transaction. Now let's understand how this demonstration really works. All right, so let's start a demonstration of the property lending process. Before we go in deep into distributed application and see it's working, it's worth noticing that as part of the process, we assume that we have issued the cash to the node 2, which is party 2. In this case, it's a buyer node, so you would see the cash balance at the moment, which is 60,000 USDs. And in the end, once the property lending process has been finished and asset exchange has been done, you would see the cash movement out there. So let's move it to the first step of the property lending process demonstration, which is the property owner or property seller would register for his property, and he would expect to see a property token generated out of the blockchain, which is Corda in this case. The way it works is the distributed application which we have created is the property registration app in the BLOX Studio web portal. We have pushed that application to the live state, so that means you can actually see that distributed app live in a mobile client, the BLOX mobile client, which can be downloaded in iOS, Android, and Windows PC devices. So let's look at the platform, and the property seller or the property owner would actually log in with his own credentials, which are unique. He belongs to organization A. As soon as he enters the credentials, he would sign in. He would see a list of distributed applications which are organized for him, and one of the property application is property registration. And he goes further to register his property with some of the common fields. Obviously, you can add as many fields as you like by just dragging and dropping on BLOX Studio. So 34 Belmore Street, I'm just putting in the wake address here. First name being, let's say, the seller name, which is Todd McDonald. He's selling his property. And the owner public key is just a concept of representation of the unique identity of the person who is selling. We just moved it to be used as a scan or barcode option, where you can, instead of typing in, you just can scan the barcode through a device and actually can pull your key in. So as soon as you enter the information, and I hope that's enough for property registration at this point in time for experimentation, we click on next and upload. So that's it. And as soon as you push that information to Corda, you would actually see a property token generated. So let's see if the property token has been generated. Right, so let's go back and check if the property token has been generated. So if you see, this is one of the APIs which we have configured in blocks. It's a part of a data source which pulls information from the property assets in Corda. So this pulls information and displays in the blocks itself. So you can definitely see a connectors working at the moment. So you can see 34 Belmont Street being registered at the property address has generated this unique token on the Coda. And if you want to see the state in Coda, that how it looks like, basically the blockchain itself, you can actually see by clicking this API. So all of these APIs would actually be part of the analytics, so you can actually relate back things quickly in real time. So, so if you see this Todd McDonald actually is the first name, last name, and this is a public key, this is address, and this is a corporate hash and corporate key being who has signed the transaction. So we have seen the property token since now is working. Now as the next step, we should look into the second step, which is the buyer who is willing to purchase a property. He goes to a bank and asking for a loan or lending for this particular property, and see where it goes. Alright, so back into the BLOX mobile client where the buyer now is logging in with his own credentials. He's representing party 2 or node 2 in the blockchain network and is belonging to different organization. So he's putting his own credentials and sign in. You can see distributed applications belonging to him would actually appear on the main page. So we have his distributed app listed here, which is loan application app. As soon as he clicks in, he would enter the application and you will see some of the information being defaulted, which is fairly possible in blocks. You can put the email address in as, let's say, test at bloxian.com, and address, let's say, 34 Bling Enclave, Mattis Avenue. Similarly, you would have the public key for this buyer as well, so which I'll just scan quickly. Alright, so that's been captured, which is unique again, and it has like some of the assets and a liability section where he would need to input his assets and liabilities. In reality, he would have this integration done with external data sources. Due to lack of time, we're not able to do that, but definitely we can extend it as we want. This is fairly important for a lending organization to judge and understand how much they can actually lend a loan. So based on the assets and liabilities and some of the information filled in, he proceeds to the next step, which is the property details. So here the important thing is like the property which you have just generated appears as a token. It's a digitized token, and you would say reason for buying, which is investment, and property purchase price you can mention as let's say $500,000, and you can say property loan requirement is, let's say, $450,000. So what we're doing essentially is we're making sure that we're not buying 100%, you're not applying for 100% of loan. And now he's selecting the lender party or the bank, which is a list of the banks which appears here. Now these nodes, the bank 1 node is responsible for issuing the bank tokens to this buyer. Now proceeding, he's been asked to provide some details, personal details, so that the bank can actually process his application. In reality, you would have more cumbersome processes, but that can be digitized as well. This is just a fair example of how the property process can be executed in atomic fashion. So as soon as it's done, you just upload the information back in. It says the data is scheduled and finally being pushed to the Coda. Now let's see if the bank token has been issued to this particular node, which is a buyer node. Alright, so we see at the moment the bank tokens are null, it's blank. Again, once you refresh it, you will see the bank tokens getting appeared. So The 450,000 bank tokens which were initially applied by buyer has appeared been granted based on the eligibility. And also you see the same property token has been tied to these 450,000 bank tokens. What this implies is that buyer cannot misuse these bank tokens anywhere else. So basically these tokens are tied to the property token. All right, moving to the next step, which is the asset exchange process. So in short, the buyer has now got the bank tokens approved in his wallet, and he's got cash issued on his node as well. Now the last step being asset exchange. So he goes back to his BLOX mobile client, where he see the distributed app, which is asset exchange, on the top left corner, and he clicks on it. And as soon as he proceeds, he being asked to put the property address in, which is 34 Belmore Street, which we added. And you can look at this, the property token got defaulted. The buyer name, first name got defaulted. Buyer node would be the party 2, which is representing the buyer itself. And the preferred bank who's lending, because the only bank one has lent him the 450,000 bank tokens, so there's only one option appearing. Then your contribution cash is 50,000 USDs in this case. And as soon as it's done, he goes on, upload, and data schedule, and the information has been pushed to Corda. Alright, so we're almost about the end of the demonstration. The last step has been executed. We just want to make sure that the assets has been exchanged atomically. That is basically the bank tokens plus cash amount from the buyer side has got the new owner, and also property asset has got the new owner. So the cash should be reflected. So as we see, the cash balance now has been reduced to $100 or $10,000. It was having $60,000 at the moment. Now it's you can see it's $10,000. There are 2 additional zeros because that's a multiplication factor. So you're just going to ignore the last 2 zeros here. So it's $10,000. Now let's look at the staging environment, the states here. So if you see, this is the retrieval of the Corda state, and let's look at the results being published. So if you can see, Todd McDonald has got, who was the basically seller of the property, has got 450,000 tokens in his wallet. That's the exchange which has happened, and you can also see similarly the end of Adam Bay, which is the new owner of the property. So so basically Adam is now the new owner of the property, and Todd McDonald is now the new owner of the bank token. So that has been exchanged atomically. So this is just a small experiment we did in a few days. Obviously, we just also can expand it the way the process in future looks like. Thanks for watching, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for any new updates on the platform BLOX or any news. Thank you so much.